Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is January the 3rd, 2023, and we are continuing our study on the Lunar Sabbath. I want to say something really quick. I was kind of hard on the teachers of the Sabbath. I was a little bit indignant about it. My logic doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Because I do believe that the people that follow the Lunar Sabbath, many of them, are saints of God. It is only logical that many of those saints are going to climb up the rank, up in the rank in the church, and become leaders in that church that teach the Lunar Sabbath. So my logic doesn't work out. It just doesn't. So, of course, there are going to be some leaders that don't realize that the Lunar Sabbath is a deception. I think maybe it just wasn't time. That's what I'm starting to think. Anyway, let's continue on. The Lunar Sabbath changes the definition of the week. The word week is used throughout the Bible. It is even included in the name for the Feast of Weeks in Leviticus 23. The Bible gives the definition of the week at the very beginning of creation, at the very beginning of the Bible. It is day 1 through day 6, and the seventh day, which is the Sabbath day of rest. A day, which is the Sabbath day of rest. A day being an evening and a morning. Here we are. Genesis 1. And he called night, he called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And then you have the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day, and then in Genesis chapter 2, of course, the seventh day is the Sabbath day rest. This, however, must be changed in order for there to be a Lunar Sabbath. The Lunar Sabbath adds extra days in the midst of the week and changes the name of the biblical day and evening and the morning to working days and transition days. These extra days break up the week and render the definition meaningless. For example, if you say a week is 7 days and it is the beginning of the month, all is fine. But if it is the end of the month, then you must redefine it to exclude transition days and new moon days. This must be done because the Lunar Sabbath excludes these days from their biblical definition, from the biblical definition given in Genesis 1 and 2. If the exclusions are not specified, your week can include any number of days. Therefore, the title week in a lunar calendar becomes meaningless because day is meaningless. Let me pull up my calendar so you can see what I mean. Okay. So let's go to the first new moon. Now, of course, this is not the new moon because the new moon is the full moon, but let's just take a look at it. So the new moon for January, which is not the new moon, but it's the dark moon, which the Lunar Sabbatarians teach is the new moon. So it's going to be on the 21st, on Saturday. So their feast days, their Sabbaths would be on Saturday. So we'll go to the next new moon. For February, and it's on a Monday. So therefore, when you transition over to the new month, you'll have an extra day here called a transition day. So if you say that a week is a week and you start from Saturday the 4th or the 11th, or well, it's not going to be the 4th, it's going to be like the 8th or the 15th or the 22nd, you are fine. But the moment you get down here and you say a week, then it's not going to be a week. It's going to include it's going to include an extra day. So it's going to include 2 extra days. So it's going to be 9 days. You'll have your 7-day week plus the new moon day plus the transition day. You have to make a qualifier in your week to add in all of those extra days. So a week is not a week, because you cannot, the way time functions, and I don't have to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. In Genesis, when they give you the time, there is a general unspoken definition of a measurement of time. It goes like this. You count the first day, you count the second day, you count the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day, the seventh day. That is therefore the end of the count. So in order to repeat that structure, you have to start the count over. Okay, another first day, another second day, another third day, another fourth day, another fifth day, another sixth day, another seventh day. That is the structure of your week. That's the basis of every calendar on earth right now. I don't think anybody has anything other than a 7-day calendar. It came directly from the Bible. It's not in the stars. It came because time measures, a time measurement repeats itself. So when you get to the lunar Sabbath and you say a week, it doesn't follow the normal structure or the normal pattern of time where it repeats and where it can be used and repeated anywhere. A decade is always a decade. It's always going to be 10 years, no matter where you use it. Well, it's not. Well, it's always going to be 10 years, all right? And you can repeat it from anywhere. But the 7-day week has been repeated through time because we were given instructions to always keep the 7th day. None of that means anything in the lunar Sabbath, because in order to define the Sabbath, the 7th day, you have to say the 7th. In order to define the week, you have to say the week excluding the transition day and excluding the new moon day. There always has to be a qualifier. Okay? This must be done because the lunar Sabbath excludes these days from the biblical definition given in Genesis 1 and 2. If the exclusions are not specified, your week can include any number of days. Therefore, the title week in a lunar calendar becomes meaningless because the day becomes meaningless. A day is no longer a repetition of an evening and a morning. A day is only a repetition of an evening and a morning when it's not a transition day or a new moon day. That's the change. That messes up the week. What can also be done is to say the number of biblical days in the week. This is nonsensical, but it can be done. Logically. It can be done logically is what I'm trying to say. It's not nonsensical. It's just, it only becomes nonsensical because we already have a definition for a week is 7 days. But it can be, you can say, another name of 8 days. You see what I'm saying? Instead of saying a week when there's a new moon, you would give that week another name. Like you would say, just say transition week or something like that. Do you see what I'm saying? Or you could say an 8-day week, a week of 8 days, an 8-day week, something like that. Just a different name. However, because of the lack of consistency, the unknown number of biblical days, the term week by itself, cannot function as a viable measurement of time. So there can be no clear definition of a week. It won't work. Now, because there cannot be a definition of a 7-day week, there cannot logically be a weekly Sabbath. There can be the 8th day of the month Sabbath. You can call it the 8th day of the month. You can call it the 15th day of the month Sabbath. You cannot call it a weekly Sabbath. Or the Sabbath 7 days after the new moon, etc., etc. Any number of names. Just can't be the weekly Sabbath. No matter how you say it, there can never be a 7th-day Sabbath on a lunar calendar. It cannot happen. Not logically. First, because it undoes God's definition for the day, so there is no week. Secondly, because the lunar calendar's definition of the Sabbath is on the 8th day after the new moon, so there's no 7th day. All that you're doing is you're taking another day besides the 7th day. It's never going to be the 7th day. You're taking a different day besides the 7th day, giving it a different name and saying we're going to call it the 7th day. It's the 8th day of the month, but you say, well, we're going to call it the 7th day. It's the 15th day of the month, but you say we're going to call it the 7th day, because it's not a week. Because there is no definition of a week in the lunar Sabbath. There is no definition of a week at all in the Bible. It erases every use of the word week in the Bible. All of it becomes meaningless. Okay, so you cannot have a Sabbath week because you cannot have a week if the lunar Sabbath were true. So that's out. And then secondly, because it's on the 8th day, it can never be on the 7th day. You're just changing the name. That's all. I hope that's clear. It's a little bit tricky, but if you think about it logically, it should be clear. It's clear to me. It seems clear to me. So I hope I explained it well enough to you. Anyway, I will talk to you on the next video.